Hello, Hardcore Finance Show listeners. This is Alex coming to you today without Shimon. And what I wanted to do is do a recap of 2022. So, without further ado, my handy dandy drink, let's go. 2022 has been an interesting year. I think it's a very challenging year for me personally, and I think for all of us, given our portfolios and given everything that Shimon and I believe in and have been talking about on the show. It's definitely been a year of downward turn in the markets, a year of turbulence, volatility, a year that's been unprecedented in both the emphasis on macro and the fairly big mistakes that the Federal Reserve has made, clearly with purchasing mortgage-backed securities and keep pumping money into our economy in 2021 and even in the beginning of 2022. And more mistakes that I think and many other people think they're making now by just jacking up the rates to fight off inflation, which they themselves created, by the way. So it's been a challenging year, sucked a lot of money out of the markets. And then what we've seen not only that happen, but also the fact that a lot of the crypto markets have been propped up by leverage. And that to me is just a very sad state of things, because what we thought was a nice Bitcoin run up, and right as we were getting ready for institutions to come in a major way, outside of just pure speculation that they have now, we actually saw that it was more or less 3 or 4 actors that were propping up the market. Celsius, Three Arrows Capital, Genesis through DCG, and FTX. And all of them have been they've been in this hyper or super leveraged loop. FTX is a complete fraud, aside from the loop, but is this leverage upon leverage of borrowing from each other, lending, like DCG took GBTC shares, Three Arrows Capital borrowed Bitcoin from Genesis, deposited that Bitcoin into GBTC there was a GBTC premium earlier in the year where the GBTC stock was actually a 20% premium to the underlying Bitcoin. Now, of course, it's at a 50% discount. But Three Arrows was borrowing from Genesis, depositing into a Grayscale, GBTC, Bitcoin Trust, selling the shares at a 20% premium after the 6 months lockup. That was all fine and great up until Bitcoin's price started to plummet, and the shares went into actually a discount. So that wasn't great, to say the least. That wasn't great, and there was more leverage there within the two entities. I won't go into that in too much detail, just because we don't have a lot of time today. But a lot of this was been definitely propped up by leverage. The FTX situation that came into light recently not only screwed over a whole bunch of people, but also put, in terms of losing $10 billion, but also put the whole industry back X number of years. I won't speculate. There's no reason to talk about 3 years, 5 years, 2 years. Who cares? The point is that Sam Bankman-Fried was involved in embezzlement, in money laundering, definitionally, in wire fraud. I mean, he's charged with all of these things. And the fact that he didn't know what was happening after being touting himself as being the smartest person in the room for so long is complete bullshit. It's just bullshit. In fact, and then we saw that the mainstream media is actually, creating puff pieces on him. So it's been a tough year. The markets have plummeted. Some crypto markets by 99.5%, and some of the farthest out altcoins. The other markets have fallen by a significant amount as well. Most people in crypto are probably down 70% from the peak, plus their stocks and a lot of tech stocks that Shimon and I always talk about and we favor have also been hit and crushed. And so, I would be remiss to tell you that, hey, I have all the answers and I kind of know what to do now. I have ideas and hunches. I still hold on to the belief that in the long run, technology will always outcompete, other staple goods type services. Look at GPT, the way it's responding to people's inquiries and doing iterations based on feedback is just incredible. It's unlike anything we've seen to date anywhere. And so that it makes me super bullish on human productivity and what we can do and how it's going to increase productivity. And this is tech. This is why people fundamentally misunderstand tech. So I'm still bullish on this. The question is, after how many years will the market, will the general sentiment come to terms with the fact that these things are here to stay, productivity increases are here to stay, and hey, we should get money back in. Last I've been hearing is, or has been, Q1 of next year, maybe Q2 of next year, but hopefully it'll come sooner rather than later, and we get corporate interest back in the game. So what's next? What's next? And maybe actually before we say what's next, what if Shimon and I got right or wrong? I'll take my perspective on it. Maybe Shimon can take his when he does it. I think that, and on the short term, for the previous year, we were pretty wrong about investing in tech. I mean, the Nasdaq took a gigantic hit, crypto has taken a gigantic hit, and so all things being equal, should we have moved money out of tech into other things? Yeah, sure, absolutely. Now, Shimon has always been one to invest in index funds, and so index funds would have done pretty well. Much better than me buying Coinbase at the top and me buying, which I still believe in, Moderna, not selling Moderna at the top, which I was in, and others. And that's the short term. However, when people talk about the short term, nobody asks, okay, well, what would have been taxable, right? So, if I have a stock that went from call it $100 to $120, right? And let's say I thought that was the top when I sold, I would owe 20% tax, $24, right, on that stock. So my equivalent cash would be 96. So if it goes from 100 to 120, it goes back down to 96. Am I losing money? Yes. Am I actually losing money? No, because I'm not paying taxes. I haven't sold it and paid taxes on it. So just because the stock goes down, right, or a portfolio goes down, it needs to go down substantially for you to be able to not have to pay taxes on those gains, on the previous gains. Losses, you have wash trade rules, so you can't sell a stock, and you need to wait 30 days, essentially a month, to buy the stock back if you sold the stock at a loss. You can't claim a loss and buy the stock back the next day. Essentially, have the same amount of stock, but capital losses. You can't do that with crypto, by the way. So, not tax advice. Talk to your financial representative, to your tax advisor. But in crypto, for now, the wash sale loophole, if you will, has not been closed. So I know I diverted away from looking back on the year, but the main goal is, we should have been smarter about moving into energy stocks earlier in the year, when the war started with Russia, into more defensive stocks, but we didn't. And so, we have to say, at least I have to say, kind of mea culpa there. Again, I have a long-term horizon, so I hope I'm right in the long term. I believe that I will be. I believe very deeply, with a lot of conviction, that I will be. But when we're looking at a year time frame, of course, it was very wrong. Was very wrong. You could have done much better moving money out than moving money in. We were quite right on some of the disruption that's going to stay, that's going to happen in tech, and it will stay. So we've seen, people going back to the office, but only 3 days a week. Even those people that are going back to the office are still staying and working from home. We're seeing, the AI chat that I talked about, tech disruption. We're seeing cars now, Tesla, incredible self-driving, tech disruption, excuse me, and more. We're going to see in genomics, Moderna's mRNA gene therapy technology has seen preliminary great cancer results. So we're starting to see a lot of these technological breakthroughs. And by the way, the biggest breakthrough, fission, the fact that we've achieved fission for a billionth of a second, but we did achieve fission, which is greater energy out than direct energy in. There are some weird ways in the way they've calculated it. More or less 90% of the energy to actually create fission is lost, and only 10% of the initial energy is shot through lasers into the molecules. So you get out, call it 50%, 15%, and you put in 10, but it's still less than the entire system. But it's okay. We'll get there as humanity. So we've had tremendous technological breakthroughs, both on productivity, on energy generation, on gene therapy, and health. And so we were quite right about that, and we believe that we're going to see increased and accelerating cycle here. So what's next kind of for 2023? I think we're still going to be in a tough interest rate environment. Probably the Federal Reserve will increase by 25% in January and then pause. But we will still be, at a high terminal rate of 4.5% to 5%, the Fed funds rate, which means that everything is going to stay high. Which means investing, the investor chooses. It's like, do I invest here or here? So if you can get 5% more or less risk-free versus 15% in the stock market, but quite risky, why wouldn't you take 5%? Or why wouldn't more people with a different risk aversion curve, with a more sensitive risk aversion curve, if you will, why would they not go into something that has a safer duration, a safer wrapping around it, like a U.S. Treasury that can give you that 5%, right, without going into the stock market, let alone going into crypto assets. I think that's one. I think we're going to see Bitcoin decouple from the markets. We're already kind of seeing it. Bitcoin has been under a lot of pressure because of all the blow-ups in crypto. That will go away. It always does. The news will dissipate and people will forget. But also, and I really hope this happens, we get positive and sensible crypto regulation. Because as soon as the regulation comes in, the space, and especially Bitcoin, become mainstream. Become mainstream for the likes of Fidelity, who's now offering zero commission trading for Bitcoin and Ethereum, I believe, but definitely Bitcoin. I'm sure the others will follow: Schwab, E-Trade, Morgan Stanley, etc., etc. This is just the first opening salvo of TradFi getting into Bitcoin exchanges. I hope that we don't see a recession, although I expect a recession next year. I think we're already in a recession in some ways. We had two quarters of negative GDP, then a positive GDP quarter this quarter, Q3. We'll see what happens in Q4. We'll get those numbers out in early next year. But I think we're going to hit a recession. It's just the Fed has slammed on the brakes too hard, has pulled too much liquidity out of the market for where the market was, for us not to see serious effects. I mean, the whole market is like a junkie waiting for money. Interest rates come in low, everybody's like, yeah, and the market starts pumping. Interest rates or hike of interest rates come in high, or the CPI comes in high, and there's an expectation of interest rates increasing. Everybody's scared, just locks up, literally freezes up, and no investing is done. So I believe this will continue into next year. Although I hope after Q1, more money starts flowing into private markets, into the public markets, and we're able to dig ourselves out of the situation. The other interesting parts is what's going to happen to Twitter. We haven't talked about Twitter in a while, but for those who don't know, Elon Musk bought Twitter because he didn't like the fact that Twitter was shadow banning people or censoring folks. And then he went on this whole mission of doing Twitter polls and saying he's gonna reinstate Donald Trump and so on and so forth. And recently he's gotten a lot of backlash because he's banned journalists from the platform. And he did it because he's saying, hey, they were doxing or basically giving away the location of private planes. And one of the private planes had his kids on it. And so people essentially knew where his kids were in real time in certain scenarios. And he had an incident where his safety was threatened. Is that right? No, it's absolutely not right. Is it right to threaten anyone? No. But Elon, if you're going to be principled about the left or your so-called left or the old guard banning people from Twitter because of their own uh, ethical ethos, if you will, you can't do the same. You stepping in and saying it's not against the law, but it's against my moral beliefs is the exact same intellectual equivalency of the other side saying it's not against the law, but we're banning Trump, right? Because he's done X, Y, and Z. In fact, what you're doing, Elon, is worse. You're banning Trump was banning one person with a great reach. You are banning multiple people with a great reach for the benefit of a few billionaires or multi-hundred millionaires or families who can afford private planes, who can afford private helicopters, and so on and so forth. Nobody's asking you to fly in a private plane. You don't need to do that. If you're flying in a private plane and that information is already made public by the FAA, and just because some kid wrote an aggregator which crawls and then puts things together, puts the data together, doesn't mean that you can get rid of them and the journalists or journalists that are advertising other platforms that are competitive to Twitter. Come on, Elon. You went from, at least in my book, someone I respected, to very quickly a bit of a disaster in terms of how you make decisions. Like, this is not what you do, even though I believe, just like you, that Twitter should have had free speech and been open. I'm happy you're opening up the Twitter files. But even after you opened up the Twitter files, excuse me, I had an itch. In the beginning, Elon, you opened up the Twitter files of our audience. He opened up all the back discussions of Twitter about ethics, about removing Trump, and so on. And in there, every time you opened up the files or you had another file drop, you would tweet about it. Firecracker, firecracker, firecracker. Come on, Elon. That's not serious. You should be impartial. Don't start a culture war in order to end a culture war, another culture war. That was just very disappointing, very unprofessional. And frankly, you can do a lot worse than that. Or I should say, you can do a lot better than that. And you took something that was going well, made it better, and then quickly made it worse with Twitter. Right now, even your hardest supporters, I am a big fan of you, Elon, of Elon Musk. I think it's hard for us, if we're intellectually honest with ourselves, to defend what you're doing now, especially given the fact that you got rid of journalists and promised that you wouldn't get rid of some accounts. So we'll see what happens with Twitter, because if he keeps at it, Twitter will quickly actually start to see some other people push back on it as a platform. So I think that's kind of part one. I think part two is will be interesting to see what happens at Facebook with this whole Meta transition. Will they actually do something with it? I think that's going to be hard. What else? What else is gonna happen next year? We're gonna see what the U.S. Congress is gonna look like. U.S. Congress would be the Congress will be quite interesting because it's gonna have a Republican House with a low margin for Republicans and a Democratic Senate with a low margin for the Senate. And Joe Biden, which is a bit of a lame duck president regardless, I think, on both sides, the Democratic and the Republican side. So we'll see what happens, right? We'll see if any bills can be passed, and I don't think they would be. And we'll see whether, how the regulation is going to shake out, especially post FTX and crypto. Regulation is coming. I've been speaking with people on the Hill and with other trade organizations. Everyone knows regulation is coming. I think many politicians are actually taking a fairly sensible perspective on regulation and doing a pretty good job of saying, hey, we want to regulate and make sure people are safe, but not kill innovation. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But so I'm still bullish on. I'm still very bullish on crypto in the long run. I'm fairly bullish on crypto in the short run as well, because it does feel like we're fairly close to the bottom of the market. But we'll see. But we'll see. And then the last thing I think I want to focus on is 2023. I think will be the year where we hopefully start to see and feel a snowball rolling for some of this technological innovation, self-driving cars with Tesla, some of the AI stuff. I would love to see it being worked in instead of just a little chatbot you play with into your day-to-day. Write me this email, respond to him and her, write me this code. Once we start seeing it actually interact on a day-to-day basis, I think this is what's going to start bringing excitement and a new narrative back into the markets. At least I think so, right? Especially in the companies that are going to use it. So look, we'll see. I hope that sometime in 2023 the Fed starts cutting rates again. I hope it's not because we're in a deep, deep recession. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if our unemployment doubles from what it is today in a very short order. All unemployment charts, by the way, that you see, they're like slow, 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 go up suddenly and come down suddenly, and then are slow, slow, slow again. So I expect unemployment to spike, here, unfortunately. So people, if you have money and you have money at home and you have money that you're saving for the future, save it, like literally actually save it, hoard money now, stay patient, and, learn how to read stocks, PE ratios, EBITDA multiples, PE multiples, and so on and so forth. Comps, how do you compare one company versus the other? How do you find peers to compare against? Because comparing companies' valuation, company operating margin, all of these things are going to become extremely and exceedingly important in the next decade, and especially in the next year. It's going to have to be very smart analysis versus just spray and shoot is what we've done last time, and especially if you hit tech with your shot, and then that would be that was like a winner, right? Anything in tech, Facebook's bumping, Microsoft, Amazon, and so on. And I hope Amazon comes back. Amazon stock hasn't done anything for the last 4 or 5 years, like pretty much nothing. And it would be nice for Amazon to come back as the logistics giant that they are, but we would need inflation to clear the system as well. So, those are my thoughts on 22 and 23. Some things we were right about, some things we weren't. 2023 is going to be another challenging year. I think 2024 will be the first year where we actually can take a sign of relief. But I'm really hoping 2023 the market starts coming up. Look, I know you're hurting. Trust me that Shimon and I are hurting quite a lot right along there with you. Have conviction. Buy Bitcoin for 10, 15 years. Have conviction, and the market is yours. The commercial, cryptos for the brave, was that crypto.com's commercial? But it's true. And the people that are brave, the people that are going to stay here, even now, we're going to reap the rewards. So if you're thinking about getting in, a lot of people are asking me about crypto, get in now. Get in now. The price of $17,000 for Bitcoin is extremely cheap. When Bitcoin is 150, we would all say, oh man, I wish I bought more at 17K. Yeah, no shit, right? And so while the market feels like it's in a complete free fall and complete panic, be smart and buy some Bitcoin now. So with that, we really hope that you guys leave us comments. I'll ask Shimon to do one of these as well to see how we match up. Leave us comments. Like, subscribe to us. We really do appreciate people's like and subscribe. It juices up the algorithms. Shimon and I do this for fun. We don't do this for money. We don't have any sponsorships really. Maybe if you want to sponsor us, please let us know. But we would love the bills to be paid. And so, if you subscribe to us, if you like us, it helps. It helps a lot. It helps the algorithms. It helps get the message out to others. So if you've enjoyed the show, I ask you, as Hanukkah's coming up, Christmas is coming up, New Year's is coming up, Kwanzaa, you name it. Do us a nice Hanukkah favor. Spread us, if you will, spread the word about the podcast, about what you're learning. We hope you're learning something interesting. And give us a like, give us a subscribe, and we hope to see you soon. So have a good year, have a good New Year, have a Merry, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to those that are celebrating. There it is. I clearly am celebrating. And until next time, we'll see you soon.